Hi everyone. We are going to talk about how to write a media plan. And whenever I have a new client in my freelancing business, or when I had my own full-time business that I ran, or even when I had a new project at different organizations or companies that I've worked for, I would always start out by writing a media plan. It just helps you know where you're going. It helps you put everything together on paper, and it's impressive to your bosses as well, or to your clients. They like seeing that you know what you're doing and that you have a plan. I have presented media plans to Board of Trustees at Macomb Community College, to uh, SMZ Advertising when I was working with them as a freelancer and they had a new client they wanted me to take on. So they work. So I want you to know how to write a media plan. It takes a lot of critical thinking and a lot of creativity. So I hope that this challenges you. I think it will. I also think that this will be something that you will use many times in the future, and you can adapt it and change it as much as you need to. So here we go. Why write a media plan? I might have said all this, but a media plan really is the blueprint for you and your client. It really outlines how you're going to engage and affect other publics and audiences, and it gives you kind of a set period of time that you'll be doing this over. It should give you results that have a lasting impact on your name recognition, your image, or whatever your project, whatever you're trying to do with your project. So when you have clear objectives, you can make sure you and your client agree on the direction the organization is headed, or you and your bosses if you are working, inside a company and doing their media plan for them. So why plan? It really helps establish expectations. It helps you know where you're headed. You're not just going kind of, where you don't really know where you're headed or what you're doing. It gives you an established way to get started. You're going to know what is required to accomplish what you're trying to set out to do. You're going to have direction so you know where to start and how to follow through. And also the client or your boss knows your plan and what time will be involved, and also the cost to execute the plan. So there are 9 sections. Now, media plans or PR plans, whatever you want to call them, they have, depending upon the person who's putting them together, they have a lot of different maybe categories, sections that they use. Some of these are very common. SWOT analysis, something that's used, number 2, is used a lot in marketing and business, and I think it's very effective, and I like using that in my media plans as well. But you'll see that almost all of these are things that you would be doing in any kind of plan that you're putting together, when your goals are communicating ideas and messages to specific audiences. So there are 9 parts, and I'm going to go through each of the 9, and then I'm going to show you an example and show you the template that you'll be using. Okay, so first is situation analysis. Some people will call this the executive summary. So use whatever term you want. This is basically where you're just kind of stating the fact of where your client is right now. It's just 2 to 3 paragraphs. It's kind of like an overview about the situation and where you're headed. This is where you can introduce your client, what the organization does, its history, the setting, and then you also inside here also write a summary of what the client wants to accomplish. So these are your really broad goals that you put into this very first part. You'll do another section later where you have objectives. And it says just a summary of what you think needs to be done for the client for the project that you're working on. Number 2 is a SWOT analysis. Many of you probably have heard about these in your marketing classes. They're very common to use. I like them a lot. In some places now, people are starting to call them SWOC, where instead of threats, they're saying challenges. So be sure when you're thinking about threats, these are just challenges. I kind of like the word challenges, but this is SWOT is what's most common right now. So strengths, what are the client's current strengths? Weaknesses, what are the client's current weaknesses? And these are usually internal. And then opportunities, what opportunities exist for the client and what threats exist for the client. And we'll look at some examples, and there I put in quite a bit of information about how to do a SWOT analysis on the Moodle page. So you'll see a folder and it's got 4 different files. One's an infograph, and there's just different information that I think will really help you. I don't feel the need to recreate the wheel on SWOT analysis because there's a lot of information out there about how to do those. And again, I'll show you an example here in a few minutes. So the third thing that you're doing is laying out the objectives and the goals. This is what you're looking at. It's looking at your client's needs and determining what tools can be used to meet those needs. Objectives are really the backbone of your plan, whether it's trying to get more people to come to an event, or whether it's trying to establish a new product, or whether it's trying to establish a new freelance business. Those are your objectives. For example, let's say your client just finished a website redesign. So one of the objectives might be, okay, I've done this redesign, I'm launching it, and one of the things I want to do is to increase web traffic by 20% within 3 months. Now this objective is good because it's quantified, it can be evaluated. So you and your client can track the number of visits through the website's analytics. So it's helpful if some of your objectives have numbers to them. So if I want to increase the number of people who attend, say, a Rochester University men's basketball game, maybe I find out what is the average attendance now, and then I say I want to increase it by 15%, and then I figure out what that number is. And then after the season's over, I can see through my media efforts, was I successful in getting more people to attend the basketball games. This is also a good objective because it uses resources that the client already possesses. They already have a website, so you're not having to pay more. There's a lot of times where we have all these tools that are out there and we just aren't using them. So be sure and think about things that your client, your project already has available to it, and use those things. This objective is also beneficial to the audience that you're working with. Anytime you have a new website redesign, that's a big deal. A lot of people, it's really the face of your company in today's world. And also you have a time limit here where it says within 3 months. You always want to have some kind of time limit because it's not an endless project, because you want to come back to the fact you need to evaluate at a certain endpoint. Okay, next, audiences. Now, the StoryBrand script that you completed should help inform you, especially on the audience section and the messaging section. So you want to talk about in your media plan, you want to talk about what audience details you have come up with. If the more detailed you can be, the better. If you can figure out demographics, maybe it's a Rochester University men's basketball and you're trying to increase attendance there. And so you figure out what are the demographics of most of the people who come to basketball games. Are they on campus? Are they students? Are they faculty and staff? Are they parents? And just kind of figure out how would you want, maybe try to get more students to attend. You also could look at location, like what are your competition for activities, if it's men's basketball. In psychographics, this is where your StoryBrand script should really help you, because you've thought about the likes and dislikes, the attitudes and opinions, who your, kind of what makes your audience tick, who your character is. So if you can share stories and content with a targeted audience, it will increase your engagement. So work through your StoryBrand script. That will be attached at the end of your media plan, but that should inform, the audience that you write about in this section of the media plan. Also, this last point, the general public is not an audience. Some people will say, everybody's my audience. Well, that's way too broad. We need to be specific. Yes, a company like McDonald's might have a general public as an audience, but they're going to have all that broken down into very specific categories, and they're trying to reach those different types of people, whether it's demographics or psychographics, and they're going to be targeted with different messages for the different audiences. So you are looking for specific audiences, and you need to talk about those audiences in your media plan. All right, next is messages. These are clear, concise sentences that articulate important information about your organization. They should be simple and short and specific. You want to make sure, we've got so much information around us. So all of us are inundated with news and advertising and all kinds of messages. And it's your job to keep your message simple and focused on one thing, getting the attention of your target audience and speaking directly to them. Your My Story brand should really, really help you in this section. You probably already have your messages written inside your script, and you can just incorporate those here. But messages also should be, I would say, a single sentence. Make it easy to understand, memorable. Is it engaging? Is it correct? Is it tailored to your audience? Objectives are more for you internally. Messages, these are the messages that you are actually sending out to your publics, to your audiences. Next, tactics and channels. This is, okay, I've got my messages. I know what I want to say. So now, how do you get that message to your audience? These are the actual materials that you'll produce and what channels you'll use to communicate it. So for channels, you need to research where your target audience consumes their information. So if your audience are, 20 to 30-year-olds, I probably would not be on Facebook because they're not on Facebook. If they're older than 30, 35, 40, yes, they're going to probably be on Facebook. Do they watch YouTube? Are they on Instagram? What are they using for entertainment? What do they spend their time on? How can you reach them? Do they listen to podcasts? Do they tune into the news on television? Do they read the newspaper? Whatever it might be. So you can do some Google searching and find out, once you know who your target audience is, and find out the most likely things in general that these people use for their media sources. So this could be mainstream media, such as print and online. That would be more like the Detroit Free Press. That would be any kind of, TV station, radio station that is just pretty much traditional, standard. It's been around for a long time. And it's very broad, where it reaches a huge audience. The niche media would be more like trade and specialist publications or websites. Every single trade has some type of media that informs and works with that trade. Whether you're a hairdresser, there's going to be websites and YouTube videos that are for hairdressers. Or if you're someone who's an engineer for an auto company, they have different publications that are geared directly to that trade. So if you're specific like that, where your project and your audiences are specialists and there's a certain trade, you can use niche media to reach them. Digital influencers, those are all out there. Let's talk about blogs, people who write their own blogs. Let's not overlook them. They're very, very effective. They're a good way to try to reach your very targeted audiences. Podcasts, as you know, are very popular. They're growing like crazy. A lot of people listen to podcasts. So maybe you use a podcast ads, or you try to create a podcast for your audience. Your own media, never overlook that. Your own website, your own social media, your own marketing materials, such as brochures and newsletters and business cards, branding, a brand kit, those type of things. And of course, there's always press releases as well. This is just some of the possible channels. It's not all of them. Next, budget. Your client will need a detailed budget of the costs that will be incurred to execute the media plan, such as, do you need to have website hosting? Do you want to use a website platform such as Squarespace or Wix or WordPress? How much will it cost to print brochures? Will you have to hire a designer? Do you need to have postage and supplies and all that? So there's a lot of things involved. If you have special events, that's a whole other thing that you would need to put into your budget for your media plan. Now, this exercise that we're doing for this class is hypothetical, so you will not complete a budget right now. I included this because I want you to understand that when you really do one of these, that budgets are part of a media plan. So for now, you can just write in this section, you can write to be determined. Evaluation. This is where you evaluate whether your objectives have been accomplished. So your criteria should be realistic, should be credible. Don't say, oh yeah, we're going to increase everything by 1,000%. That's probably not possible unless you're Tesla or Apple or something like that. You have to be credible, you have to be specific and appropriate. So an objective, you must be able to evaluate your objectives. This is one place where media people and PR people often get a bad rap because they use phrases like, oh, let's just increase awareness. Well, what does that mean? You need to be more specific and use numbers and use data to prove your point. So here's some examples of what you could do. Take a moment to think about how you can evaluate your project, your client. Maybe you're a nonprofit and you're trying to create more donations. So maybe you say you want to raise a certain amount of money in 6 months, or you want to increase your monthly people who are donating by 10%. Maybe increase your Facebook likes, your Instagram followers. You can track your web traffic, how many people are going there. Maybe it's a fact of getting volunteers to help with different things if you're a nonprofit. Press mentions, did you get mentioned in any of the mainstream media, on blogs, that type of thing? Google searches, did you increase that? Did you increase sales? Comments on views on blogs. So there's a lot of different ways that you can evaluate. So here's a few questions that you could put in your evaluation section if appropriate. Has there been an increase in web traffic over 6 months, whatever the time period is? Has there been an increase in followers and engagement visible on social media management tools? I would even say it would be better to say, in your objectives, to say we're trying to increase social media followers and engagement by 20% or by 100 people or whatever it might be. And then here in your evaluation, you say, did we accomplish that or not? Have there been more signups to your database? Has the rate of opt-ins to lead magnets improved? Now, a lead magnet might be where you have a white paper on a certain topic that you are giving out for free to people so that they will get to know you and you'll get their information, and then you could try to get them to buy your product, your service, whatever it might be. Have you seen online sales improve? That type of thing. So you're trying to evaluate. So if, again, going back to RU men's basketball, one of your questions for evaluation could be, did we increase attendance by 20% over this next season? Something like that. And then you can evaluate that. So wrap up. So you're going to use these slides as well as the media plan template document on Moodle to write your client's media plan. Now you don't have to focus on being perfect, but you need to give this a good effort and do your best. Focus on generating good ideas and efforts for your client. This is probably the first time you've written one of these, so they get easier when you do them more because you become more used to how to do it and how to think through it. Don't be afraid to put those big ideas into your media plan. It's really going to be up to the client whether they want to use them or not. Now, know that it's not your job to accomplish these objectives during this short 8-week class. You are simply planning. You're laying out a plan on how you could do these things in the future. Okay, so now let me move to an example. Now you have a link to this that you'll be able to view. This is one that my class worked on last year for Hope House Montgomery. And so you can see the situation analysis. So this is where you're laying out, let me just read the first paragraph. Our client, Candace Kane, started Hope House Montgomery, an incorporated nonprofit licensed in Alabama in 2020. Hope House Montgomery will purchase a home in a neighborhood in Montgomery and work to establish connections with the community and to produce programs serving the people who live there. The desire is to be highly relational with the neighbors, to walk alongside children and youth in intentional ways. So you can see this is just kind of laying out where we are, kind of summarizing, talking about who the client is and what sort of the goals are for this client. The SWOT analysis is here. So you can see the strengths here, and on the template, there's questions as prompts to help you. So the strengths, what do you do well? What unique resources can you draw on? What do others see as your strengths? So and we said some of the things is that there's no other nonprofit specific like this in the area. She already has a board in place to help oversee the project. She raised funds. She almost had all the money already raised to purchase a house. Not quite, but she did get there. She's now in the house, if you want to know. They have a model, Hope House Detroit, that they're using. And so it's not like the first time someone's tried to do this. And they have a close connection to Hope House Detroit. Weaknesses, funds still need to be raised for all aspects of the organization. Money is key to help get the organization off the ground. And there's just a lack of awareness about it because it's brand new. And then you can see the other opportunities. What opportunities are open to you? What friends could you take advantage of? How can you turn your strengths into opportunities? So opportunities were that several universities in Montgomery, in addition to Faulkner University, including Alabama State and Amridge, could create connections with these institutions to recruit interns, volunteers, donations, etc. There's an elementary school within a few blocks, so connections can be made there. 23% of Montgomery residents are under the age of 18. And there's other stats there that you can see. The threats, what could harm you, what are challenging you. Montgomery, Alabama crime rate for 2018 was a certain amount, and that could hurt Hope House Montgomery if they're in an area that does have higher crime, that could be a threat. The pandemic has delayed projects and could be a concern among guests or volunteers. And racial, political, and cultural inequality and misunderstanding between the groups. So you can see they're more like external threats. Now, this media plan, we did other research as well. You will not include in other research, but it's in here. It was in this plan, but I took it out just so that you could focus on the other things that we're doing. So that's all the other research. And then you can see objectives and goals, audiences, messages, tactics and channels, timeline to be determined, budget to be determined, and then evaluation. So this is how your media plan should be set up and how it should look. So this is an example. Read through it thoroughly so you can get a feel for what you need to be doing. Now, you will be making a copy of this. It's on Moodle. You can follow the link to it. Make a copy of it, and this is where you'll start working on your own media plan. So you'll have the situation analysis, the SWOT analysis, and then all the things that we just went through. And I have asterisks here. You're going to, just to remind you to use your My StoryBrand script to help inform you on number 4 and 5. And then I do want you to download a PDF of your StoryBrand script and include it on the last page, kind of like as an addendum to the end of your media plan. Okay, so that is where we're headed. All of this is on Moodle. I will have it open for you as soon as I finish this video. So the instructions are here, media plan example, SWOT analysis information, and this is where you'll submit your actual media plan. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. I hope that's helpful, and I really look forward to seeing what you come up with. Thanks.